Is it the death or the rebirth of the New York Mets? Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. We are joining you after another cornerstone player, Pete Alonso, is leaving the New York Mets. He's headed to the Orioles on a 5-year, $155 million contract. Hi, Ashley. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Coming to you live from my apartment, where not only is Pete Alonso an Oriole and Edwin Diaz is a Dodger, but I also just lit my microwave on fire and the whole apartment smells like smoke.
All over a piece
Anyways,
of bread, by the way.
all over a piece of bread. Anyway, I'm fine. Yes, what a 24 hours it's really been here in Metsland. First, we lose Edwin Diaz to the Dodgers. Thank you all for watching that video and commenting, and we see all of it and we really appreciate it. And then, what sort of reward did David Stearns have coming around the mountain for us the next day? Pete Alonso went shopping at the winter meetings, and oh, did he found a new team. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. The Orioles pay him the highest average annual value, $31 million a year in the history of baseball for a first baseman.
Oh, wow. I mean, to start, I am feeling a few things. I want to just say to start that I understand all Mets fans who are feeling sad today, right? This is again another cornerstone player who you're losing. The core is officially broken up, so we know that we're headed in a different direction now. Diaz and then Alonso was sort of that 1-2 punch where you were really hoping that they walked away with one of them. I'll say this just to get our talking points started. I was more gutted about Diaz than Alonso. It had nothing to do with personalities. I just thought from a player standpoint, who the Mets needed, who would be hard to replace. I actually, from the jump, was okay with the idea that Alonso would go somewhere else. And I know that there are a lot of fans out there who will say, Steve Cohen has all the money in the world, so you could have paid him anything. But do I think that the Baltimore Orioles got fleeced? In a way, yes. I think that they overpaid significantly, and we shouldn't discount that.
Yes, I completely agree. I think this was an overpay. We came on this podcast last year as the negotiations were going down into this year, into this offseason, and we're both sort of in agreement that Pete Alonso was want to have. I don't like how the lineup looks without him right now, certainly, but he wasn't a have to have in the same way that I did feel Edwin Diaz was yesterday. Am I still upset today when I look at the current lineup that the Mets would trot out there? Absolutely, yes, I am. There are discussions that need to be had over who's going to play first base, how you're going to replicate that power in the lineup now that you have both Alonso and Brandon Nimmo in other places next year. So obviously it's a far from finished product in terms of the Mets, but I understand why a lot of fans today are so upset because you're leaving the winter meetings a significantly worse team than you hoped. Like Diaz and Alonso had both opted out. Okay, they weren't Mets, but they were still on the table. Now you're leaving a worse team. Two good options are off the table, and your back's kind of against the wall to figure that out. Like I saw someone say this earlier today, and I wholeheartedly agree. David Stearns probably has the most pressure on him now in terms of executives in the sport to figure it out over the next couple of months because I mean, there's a lot of holes, right? You just look at the projected lineup without Alonso, and it raises a lot of questions. And of course, people want to get into who they're still in the market for, who they're not. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, I just think we should talk about the actual way that this Alonso deal went down, right? So the Orioles, like you said, I agree it's an overpay. I didn't want the Mets to overpay. So in a way, I guess I can't be so upset. But the news broke from Anthony DiComo that the Mets actually never gave Alonso an offer. And that to me, that's where I get upset because that I think no matter if you knew the market was going to be higher than you were comfortable with, or whatever the wording was, if you knew he was going to get a deal longer and more money than you were willing to provide, I just think it's not a great look to even be in the market for the guy who's been your franchise first baseman for the past, what, 7 years? I mean, this is a guy all-time home run leader for the Mets, top five in multiple offensive categories, I believe RBI, total bases, a bunch of things. Like, this guy was a great Met who provided you with a long legacy and a lot of moments in the first half of his career. And to just let him take a walk without even making it known that you'd like him back in the form of a formal offer, to me, that's insulting.
I get that that falls short. Five-time All-Star, NL Rookie of the Year. He was a great Met. I think he was a great Met from a lot of different standpoints. I also think it's worth pointing out that he was a fan favorite. That plays into this too, because something that I've noticed, and I'm sure other Mets fans have observed, is that David Stearns has no loyalty to any of these players. David Stearns does not care at all if Pete Alonso was your favorite player or my favorite player. David Stearns doesn't care that I was gifted an Alonso jersey last year and now it's worthless. I understand in a way where he's coming from, and I think there are two sides to this. I agree. Let me just say I agree. There should have been a formal offer. And it was kind of weird behavior to see that they didn't even get to that point, that it wasn't even out there. But now that I've had time to digest this and debrief, I really feel like there are two ways you can look at this. On the one hand, if you're letting Alonso walk, that means that you really want to break up this core. And you have to think the only reason that you're doing that is because they want to win. I saw a good article from Anthony DiComo today that I believe said outside of the 2024 season, which we all know how that went, um, that the Mets had only been in one playoff game since 2018. That's horrific. Like that's
Well, right.
absolutely
That would have
a
been the wild card debacle in 2020. Was that 22 or 23? Yeah.
right. Like that's abysmal. Like that's terrible. And my point in saying that is just to say, whatever it is, playoff game, playoff series, the point is, like, the Mets were not competing well. They were losing. Most of their seasons recently had either been losing seasons or they were good seasons, but when they got to the playoff, they crumbled. Like, besides that one Jose Iglesias OMG season, and they go on a run that wasn't supposed to happen, outside of Pete Alonso hitting that home run against the Brewers, it wouldn't have happened. Stroke of luck, a lot of talent. But the point is, the team was really not very good for the last few years. So a part of me feels like, why are fans clinging to this core that actually has not produced a lot of playoff success? But on the other hand, this by David Stearns was a risky move and it can work. And he could be a hero if he's a hero. And so far, we haven't actually seen any of those moves that would put him in that hero frame. Right now,
Well, right.
he's sitting in a villain picture frame, and that's really all I'm seeing. Because to me, this is, I think, the danger in it. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. The danger when I saw this move made today was if you don't show me two or three monster pickups or your plan to develop internally does not work right away, then all anyone is going to remember this offseason as is the time when you lost out on the ability to win now. You threw that aside. You went back into developing our players. You went back into win later mode. And no Mets fan is fucking interested in that because we've
No.
all been living that for the longest time.
Well, I think that's a great point, and that sort of goes off of what I said yesterday with the Diaz stuff is like, listen, I agree with you. This core, when we're looking at it, didn't actually win anything and only really had one postseason that was exciting to their name, right? However, the other side of that coin is no Mets fan right now is prepared for a full-on, full-blown rebuild in the traditional sense. And honestly, you have two superstars still on the team in terms of Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. You don't need to do a full-on meltdown, total teardown rebuild. So I think they need to find the balance of now, okay, the guys that you wanted to walk, or I guess we're okay with walking, are gone. Now it's time to bring in your guys, whether that's Cody Bellinger, Kyle Tucker, which would be the win for fans, I think would salvage the situation, would be Tucker, or whoever else it might be. Because what I'm really not interested in is a direction that I hope David Stearns does not take of being like, well, Carson Bench is coming up, and here comes Jet Williams, and Ryan Clifford is our first baseman of the future. All of those prospects are nice. The Mets have one of the top prospect farm systems right now in baseball. So that's great. But like we don't have as Mets fans and as a team that just added Juan Soto and prime Francisco Lindor, we don't have, I guess, 3 to 5 years to see this through. So David Stearns now is in a position where he has to prove that he had a vision to at least somewhat win now, whether that's next year, whether that's 2027. It can't be 5 years away because Mets fans just don't have the patience for that after what they lived through in the Wilpon era. And the reason why, and I said this yesterday, the past 2 days have felt so traumatic is because it feels like we're in the Wilpon era.
Yeah.
Losing guys to teams that are going to pay them more money. Now, obviously, that is not true as a whole. I'm sure there's some sort of plan from both Stearns and Steve Cohen, but now we need to see it executed, right? People are so upset today because the Mets have done nothing. The reality is that if the Mets even, signed Bellinger, signed anybody who made a trade, signed Bregman, signed anybody who fans were thought going to like that player was going to be impactful, people would be less upset today. The reason why the ripping off of the band-aid feels so bad is because nobody's been brought in to make it feel better, you know?
Well, I've actually thought a lot today about what you just said, Lindor and also Soto. The thing is, if Stearns has this master plan where he's feeling like, hey, what we said, when Steve Cohen became the owner didn't work. We all remember World Series in 3 to 5 years. Okay, so since that didn't work, we're going to try something different. We can promise you a World Series in another 5 years. I assure you, he'll be fired before the plan even works.
No.
It doesn't work that way in New York. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. If people in New York had more patience, is it possible that they would be able to figure out something better or be able to win more in the future? Maybe, but like that's not the way that professional sports operates. You can't just wait around. Like this is not a high school sports where you have a rebuilding year because they're all freshmen. Just wait until the time when
No.
they're seniors. It's going to be a crazy team. Like this is not like these are adults, right? And you have the money to be able to bring in different pieces, and every other team is doing that. So there's no reason that the New York Mets can't do that. And again, I totally get why we're continuing to hear the name Wilpon, and it's coming up in a traumatic way in conversation because I feel like that's a name you talk about a lot. Like I feel like that's like a time period that really sticks out in your mind
That was my
because everybody,
childhood.
right, everybody remembers what it feels like to have a cheap owner. And nobody wanted that again. So why do we have that feeling when we have a billionaire? And honestly, I don't think Steve Cohen is cheap. I don't really know what's going on. And the only reason I've continued to pause and not fly off the handle is because I am sort of feeling like you can't judge the offseason until it's over. And we both did say we were okay with Alonso leaving. But the more that these guys are leaving, Nimmo and Diaz, the more you're starting to think, are they really still committed to the win now mentality? Because that's sort of what I thought David Stearns was brought here to do. I sort of thought that the entire vision was we're going to bring in this young, youthful guy who has energy, who is creative, who is able to make deals happen, who's able to bring guys in. He has an eye for talent. Where is all that? Because again, I'm just seeing us lose a lot of people who are really important to the fans, which admittedly is not the most important thing. But if that has no value to you, then surely you must be focused on winning. So if we don't see that either, then now all we have is a losing season and an Alonso jersey that isn't worth shit.
It's the Alonso jersey of it all,
It's
really.
the Alonso
Um,
jersey of it all. That was a present.
I understand. And now it's a relic is what it is. No, I mean I think at the end of the day, right, we're we're talking about like we said, Alonso had such a legacy in New York. Both of us were not sure if he was the correct fit for this team moving forward and did not want to overpay him. That's true. It can also be true that there are kids, younger than us, people like that grew up on Pete Alonso. Every, team or fandom has that player that like gets you into loving it, right? I always say for me it was David Wright because that's the age that I am. That was Pete Alonso for a lot of kids. That was maybe Brandon Nimmo for even some kids. And so the change that the Mets are going through right now, I don't think we can like overstate how sizable it is. This team in 2026 is going to look completely different than it has in the past 5, 6, 7 years. So just to wrap your mind around that, and I do think there's positives to that because as we keep saying, that core didn't win much. But it's just certainly a weird feeling. I agree that we have to give Stearns the rest of the offseason because what else is there to do? I also think that there is a significant sense of urgency for him now in the wake of these two things happening. Mets fans want something to happen and they want it to happen now. To be honest, if you leave everybody hanging until February, I don't really think that's a great strategy either, just from a business perspective, from a season ticket holder perspective. I know that stuff sounds dumb, but like don't leave your fan base hanging for months. Um,
The casino alone is not going to cut it.
no, the casino alone is certainly not going to cut it. Um, And I just think that the most alarming part to me that I keep coming back to is like sort of this PR stuff. We saw the Mets be a poorly run organization, top to bottom, with the Wilpons, for regardless about money. There was always some drama. There was always some leak. There was always something that made you say, haha, the Mets are the little brother in New York. With the way that the Diaz and Alonso signings have gone down in the past 2 days, with what has come out about Diaz being unhappy that they signed Devin Williams without telling him, with Alonso shopping himself to other teams and the Mets never making him an offer, with those things in mind, I mean, it certainly doesn't help to change the perception of where the Mets stand in New York and in the broader baseball picture. I don't know how much that matters to anybody, but when Steve Cohen bought the team, he said it was something that mattered to him. So now you're sort of again climbing an uphill battle against that.
I also think it's funny because we sit here and we talk about, Pete Alonso, like, well, they should have done it for the fans and they should have done it because he was a fan favorite and it made people happy to go watch him. Like, what about the fact that he hit 40 home runs and bat behind Juan Soto? Like, that's also a relevant discussion topic. You know what I
And
mean?
and who's gonna play first base? And quite simply, without Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso, where are you replacing 200 RBI from last season?
Right. Like, where are the 40 home runs coming from? That's honestly that's what's concerning me now. I'm like, oh, well, we were fine with Pete Alonso, take it or leave it. But so what do we have now? Who's replacing that? How is the lineup actually better? Are there stats that can prove it? Not seeing any of that so far. And what happens to Juan Soto now? Are we just paying him millions and millions of dollars to walk a million times? How is he going to be in a different situation without having Alonso behind him? Those are the kinds of things that I actually think are worth thinking about when you think about the fact that they chose to give him up and not even make an offer. That is almost so bold and so ballsy to me that it makes me feel certain that something else big is coming. Because if it's not, it's a really big flop and everybody knows it, including them.
Well, it must be. I mean, the rumors that have come out of just even preliminary and even, did earlier the past few months, if they don't re-sign Alonso, what happens? Who plays first base? Okay, Mark Vientos has been a floated option. He had a great rookie year, a subpar sophomore season last year. We don't really know what Mark Vientos is at this point, or if he has that longevity as an everyday player that is going to provide power to your lineup. I've said it many a time. I'm still in on Mark Vientos. I'd like to see what he can bring to the team in his third year next year. However, in an everyday first base role, I don't know about that. Okay, then the other rumor today coming out
Here
is
we
that
go.
they're gonna platoon Jeff McNeil, old friend Jeff, and Paul Goldschmidt at first base. That is just, I mean, should we call the retirement home? Like, should we break out the like AARP application? Like, I am not interested in that, and I'm not interested in Jeff being on the team anymore. So I'm gonna need them to trade Jeff McNeil for my sanity.
Of all
Anyway,
the people who we wanted them to get rid of,
no, I
why is that one guy still here? I'm not going
get
to
rid of
say any
Jeff.
names.
Anyways, but aside from that, obviously you can still fix this if you're the Mets. You can still plug the hole, whether it's at first base, DH, protecting Juan Soto. You can go out, you can get Cody Bellinger, you can get Kyle Tucker. You could trade for a guy like maybe even Yandy Diaz. You could get creative here in terms of the lineup. But now we just have to see that come to fruition. And I guess the overarching point maybe is that Stearns has had this vision and this, okay, we're going to tear it down this year. We're going to try something new. What is that exactly? Because we have no signings yet to show for or to even hint or indicate what that vision might be. He said at the end of the season he wanted to get more athletic, he wanted to have a better focus on defense. He said a few things, but we have yet to see any tangible signings that I guess point us one way or another.
Yeah, two words really stick out to me in the words and the sentences you just spoke. First of all, I'm sick of the idea conceptually of a platoon. I'm actually sick of the word platoon. I don't want to say the word platoon
No, please
anymore.
do.
It's an annoying word, and the fact that the two O's are together just makes it really annoying to say out loud. I don't want to say it anymore. I don't want to hear about a platoon anymore. Let's just have players who play their own positions. That would be really, really
Terrific.
great. And that would be tremendous even. There are a lot of T words we could use to describe it. The other thing is you mentioned the Mets are going to have to get really creative here. What upsets me about that is like when I think, we're going to have to figure out ways to get creative. That's like the kind of thing that you and I say to each other come the holidays when we're shopping for families, we're shopping for boyfriends and girlfriends because we're broke. Like that's what you say. You're like, we have to get creative. Like that, I literally say that. I'm like, broke shoppers have to get creative because we're gonna have to figure out things to make. We're gonna have to figure out things to draw.
DIY.
A lot of DIY projects going on because that's what you do when you don't have enough money to shop. This is not that situation. The Mets can get creative, but there was no need for them to ever be an artist. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And I don't know how we got into, again, this situation where it's like, well, if we put this person here and this person here and we're platooning here, it's like we could have just gotten one or two big deals and fixed some of the relevant issues. And I wish, and I'm still hoping, that they're going to throw a lot of money somewhere. Like they're going to throw a lot of money at a problem. And honestly, I don't know why I just have to say this. I feel like it's going to make you sick to say.
Oh no.
I sort of feel like a part of what's coming is like, do you think they're going to like trade away Lindor? Like, has that crossed your mind at all?
It's crossed my mind only because I've seen some fans say it on social media, and I just want everybody to know that if they trade away Lindor, I'm rescinding my fandom. I'm gone. The podcast
Like,
is over. It's all done.
we won't even do an episode. We'll just cancel it. You know
You'll
what?
never hear from us again.
We will change the name to Why Am I a Dodgers fan?
We will start covering the Dodgers if the Mets trade Francisco Lindor. That's a dangerous thing that we just said because if that happens,
Well,
um,
we've seen you in the comments. We'll just do it. That would be enough to break us. Sure. We'll just start covering the Dodgers, and then we get Edwin Diaz back.
perfect. And then
There
I
we
don't
go.
have to feel broken every single day of my life.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm interested to see what's to come for the rest of the offseason. Obviously, I mean, it has to be a lot because, like I said yesterday, like the Mets can't even field a team right now. There's no first baseman. You need another outfielder. You don't have a starting rotation. Like, there's genuinely so much for Stearns and company to figure out that you have to think it's part of a greater plan. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I think I agree with what you're saying in terms of that's where everybody is right now is you have Steve Cohen, you have a billionaire owner, you know you don't have to be bargain shopping, and yet it sort of, in a sense, still feels like you are. The reality of the situation is the Orioles paid Pete Alonso 155 million, 155 million. The Dodgers paid Edwin Diaz $69 million. This is all over the past 2 days of heartache and trials and tribulations is over $200 million. You know how much we paid Juan Soto last offseason? Nearly triple that. Just think about that for a minute. Over triple that. Sorry, I can't do math. I'm a journalist.
It's no journalist can do math. It's not your fault. The thing is, it's like it's starting to upset me even thinking about Juan Soto, and I feel like we're always using him as an example. Like, why do they shell out all this money for Juan Soto and not for anyone else? And if I'm feeling that way, I can only imagine how the players are feeling. I can only imagine how Pete Alonso is feeling. I can only imagine how what I not to mention in that whole Nimmo situation, they got money back. It's like I don't understand why we're sitting on this money instead of using it and spending it. So like I said, I'm not going to jump off the ledge yet because I want to see what is going to happen in the rest of the off season, and I would like to see if they really are feeling like through all of these different changes, we can actually make a difference and win now. To be fair, it's like for all of the win now that we've been talking about, the Mets were really bad last year when you actually look at the way it all played out. Like I know they had a lot of talent on their roster. Individually, there were some really good players on that team. But the point is that when it came to game 162, they waltzed into the Miami Marlins facility, lost on the last day of the regular season, and were not in the playoffs in a year where everyone said they could, and some people even thought they should have won the World Series. That's just the reality.
To the Marlins of
To
all
the
teams. I blocked
Marlins.
that out of my brain, but to the Marlins.
I don't
Um,
think we should forget about it, is all I'm saying.
no, we shouldn't. I think that the feeling you're left with today is just that David Stearns is now operating. We have been signaled one thing, and that he's operating in a very cold and calculated sense. And it has really nothing to do with players that fans like, guys that have longtime Mets legacies. I mean, a guy that in Pete Alonso could have had his number up in the rafters one day. That is a guy who, if he was a career Met, would have always been known that way. And now you just lost that because he's going to play the second half of his career with the Orioles. So David Stearns has shown that he has no allegiances or alliances to those things. It really does feel like nobody's safe. Like the fact that we're even talking about Lindor being a trade possibility is outrageous. And now we're just gonna have to see where he proceeds from here. But I circle back to what I said at the beginning of this, is that I don't think there is an executive in baseball right now that has more pressure or more of a target on his back than David Stearns going forward the next few months.
If it
And
happens to work, oh, go ahead.
I pose a question to any of our Mets fans who are listening to this, or Dodgers fans, or whoever, if you just want to weigh in. If you are a fan of the Mets right now, what would pacify you at this point? Would you feel okay if it was Kyle Tucker? Would Cody Bellinger make you 100% all right with this? Would it be Scooble? Who on the free agency market or trade target would make you feel legitimately better about the lineup that the Mets have on paper right now?
Or would no one? Would nothing be enough based on the guys who they already gave away? Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'll just wrap it up by saying, to me, it almost feels like Stearns is a big analytics guy. He's a big numbers guy, big stats guy, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I also hope he really just does have an eye for it because I think right now this isn't necessarily passing just the eye test. You know what I mean? There's a few things about it that just don't feel quite right.
The eye test right now, a little shaky.
You're opening that microwave, you're seeing a fire and a piece of
There's a
bread.
fire, and it still smells like smoke. Okay.
Okay, anyway, final thoughts and then we'll get out of here.
Final thoughts. Yeah, just let us know how you feel in the comments. Thanks so much for all of your support. As always, Dodgers fans, if you're still here for the last 5%, have you digested Edwin Diaz? How do you feel about that a day later? Just let us know what you guys think, and we'll be here all off season tracking anything else that happens. Hopefully, something is coming soon. It is nearly Christmas, and we are waiting for some presents from the Mets.
I was thinking that actually is a great idea for a segment since I feel like most people aren't listening anymore. I'm just gonna say it though.
Sure.
We should start a segment that's called The Last 5% and do I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's gonna be something silly. I'm just saying. I think it's a good
Just in
idea.
case you're all wondering where that comes from, on Spotify, we saw our numbers and it said that like people listen to this podcast for longer than 95% of other podcasts. So that means that's obviously great. We're making a joke. But that means that the last 5% sort of goes off the rails.
And because I was gonna say it, I didn't actually say that people are listening to us. Like, aren't they listening for the most part, like 95% of the way through? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So that last 5%, we're gonna do something with it to keep you all here and make you stay. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. It really helps us out when you do that. We very much so appreciate it. That last episode was a banger, and it's still a banger. So thank you so much for making our dreams come true with that. Happy holidays to you all. We will see you back here when the next big thing happens. Have a great evening.